Welcome to Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. This is not your typical financial radio show. As a licensed CPA, insurance agent, and investment advisory representative, Chris coaches his clients on a holistic view of financial well-being with an objective of providing a complete financial strategy to fund life's goals. Chris is here to guide you down the path to the financial serenity you deserve. Now, here's Chris Cooper.
All right, good morning. And today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about interest rates. Interest rates affect a lot of different things. They affect our ability to purchase new pieces of equipment, new cars, our home, all of those kinds of things usually are done through loans and interest rates. It also affects the economy. Inflation has a little bit of an indication there, right? And then additionally, the Fed funds rate has an effect on the financial markets. Reason we're going to talk about it today, on September the 17th, we have the Fed's two-day meeting starting up. And there's a lot of talk that interest rates are finally going to start coming down. We haven't seen it in a long, long time. Anyone know when the last time interest rates were actually reduced? Probably not. It's been a long time. 4.5 years. It's been over 4 years since we have seen a rate reduction by the Fed. It's taken a long time. Inflation is the big indicator of that. The economic conditions we've been in have seen rising interest rates over a long period of time. We had the COVID pandemic time frame. Interest rates actually stayed pretty low during that time. But then they started to creep up as inflation started to creep up. So now there has been lots and lots and lots of talks about what's going to go on with federal rates. And a lot of times, really priced into the market today, is an expectation that there will be a drop in interest rates. A drop. That has not happened in 4.5 years. So it's kind of crazy. But that's where we are. We seem to be starting to see some different things that are improving in some ways. But ultimately, we still haven't seen rates go down in a very long time. A lot of this is baked in. A lot of this seems to be priced in. A lot of people expect this rate reduction to be coming. They've been teasing about it for quite some time. So we'll see how it goes. But in the event that these meetings do not go as anticipated, the markets are probably going to react. We don't know that. And we've seen some weird situations happen. There's a lot of volatility still in the world today. But ultimately, there's a lot of anticipation that we're going to see a rate cut here looming. Whether it's in September or shortly thereafter, a lot of that depends on the numbers. And the Fed is not being very generous in giving a lot of information here. Taking into consideration the most recent data and all those good things, last jobs report didn't help. It didn't help. There was a lot of expectations that the rate was going to be reduced here, but it didn't. So we will see what's going on. There's a lot of other things kind of up in the air right now. I think there's something going on in the November timeframe that happens every 4 years that has an impact on these kind of things. Yep, we got a presidential election here coming up, and that's going to influence a lot of these kinds of things too. It always does. Does it really influence? You know, you could argue yes or no in a lot of different ways, right? There's some things that do influence and get impacted on a shorter term basis. A few things on a longer term strategic direction. But ultimately, we get elected. We have elected officials every 2 years, really, right? Because there's always an election going on. Every 2 years, it changes over. So our political system is built on a constant change basis. And so we always had to think about these kind of things because we don't want situations that are outside of our control to influence our goals and objectives long term. Okay, whether we're looking at retirement, we don't want to retire for just 4 years. 8 years, 12 years. No, so presidential election cycles do happen every 4 years. But we still want to make sure we can retire for the next one and the next one and the next one. And we can't predict those either. So don't sit there and be nervous about something you can't control. I'd say the same thing about the Fed funds rate, okay? Interest rates. Interest rates are going to fluctuate in time. They are going to fluctuate in time. Our next guest is going to talk a little bit about interest rates and the history because he's been around, he's seen it. But ultimately, you can't let things that are outside of your control dictate what you can and can't do. You have to make sure you can plan for the right thing for you, for your situation. So whether it's buying a house, buying a car, you're probably going to finance these types of things. And sure, there's an impact on interest rates, but the economic environment we live in also changes the price of those items as well. So the real estate market, the car market, the used car market, these things are impacted by economic circumstances we're in today, and that includes interest rate environments. Truly, it does. So a lot of those kinds of things, there's ups and downs, there's movements, there's flows, but don't let those things impact it because you cannot control those things. So look at the cost, look at your budget, understand what your objectives are, what you're trying to achieve, and build that into your plan. Okay? You can't change these things. They don't drive your situations long term. The average mortgage in today's world, we'll talk a little bit more about it, it's not as long as you think it is. It's not. We always think we're moving into that forever home. We always think there's a reason for it. We're not going to move. But ultimately, our situations change. Our lifestyle changes. So we need to be nimble. We need to understand what that looks like. We need to plan for long-term success. But we need to revisit those goals and objectives on a day-to-day basis. We need to understand what they are. And they're not going to change every single day. But you know what? At least once a year, we need to reevaluate. At major life-changing moments, we need to bring in professionals. We need to talk about what's going on in our world. We need to understand, hey, are my objectives still, where I want them to be? How does my long-term plan look under these circumstances? What can we do differently? What should we think about differently? And how can we take advantage of certain types of situations? These are all questions we have to understand and consider. It's not always a day-to-day thing. It is week by week, month by month, and it does take time. These things take time, but you cannot let the uncontrollables dictate what's going on in your world. You have to take control of the things you can.
You're listening to Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. Request a free copy of Chris's latest book, The New Holistic Retirement, by visiting SerenityNowTax.com. That's SerenityNowTax.com.
Do you want your retirement plan benefiting you or the IRS? If you're concerned about reducing your partnership with the IRS through higher taxation, you need to attend our upcoming workshop, Taxes and Retirement. We got 2 dates, Thursday, September 19th, Wednesday, September 25th, taking place over at the Walnut Grill in O'Fallon, Missouri. Reach out for more details at SerenityWealthNow.com. That is SerenityWealthNow.com.
Serenity Now!
Hi, it's Vic Porcelli. You're listening to Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper on 101.9 and 94.1 NewsTalk STL.
All right, so with me in studio, we've got Scott Sievers of F&M Bank and Trust, a mortgage partner of mine. Scott, how are you today?
Doing absolutely wonderful, Chris. Thanks for having me out today.
No, not a problem, man. My pleasure. So there's always a lot of talk about interest rates, what's going on with the Fed and all these good things. And I talk a lot about that stuff in the financial arena. But one question I have for you is, what's going on and what questions should people be having, or what are some common questions people ask when they're looking at, buying a home or using their home or anything, really, a car or anything like that, to secure a rate, right? To go into debt.
There's a lot of factors that go into getting that rate and getting into that debt. Probably the most common question that I do receive from people looking to buy a house or refinance a house is, why should they use me?
Yeah.
What differentiates myself from everybody else out there?
Well, that's a great point. So talk a little bit more about that.
I've been doing this since 2001, 23 years now. Actually, this month was 23 years.
All right.
All here down in St. Charles County, St. Louis County.
Part of the community. I like that.
Love it. Been doing it. I don't have all the answers. I don't even have all the questions. But I do know where to find the answers.
Sure.
For when people have those questions for me. So me being part of this community, my family, we all live here, raised three kids here. You're going to run into me at the grocery store. You're going to run into me at, Target or Walmart or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm part of the community here. So
That's
people
important.
ask me, why should I use you? Well, you're going to see me. I'm here for the long haul.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere.
Well, that community engagement, community involvement is something that I talk to a lot as well, because ultimately service is really what matters to people, right?
Correct. Yes.
Absolutely. So, all right. So when we think about the mortgage business and the mortgage industry, I'm a true believer. I'm sure you are as well. There are good debts out there, and there are, not so good debts, right?
That it is very well.
Credit cards probably not the best way to finance an interest or your lifestyle.
If you use it properly, it can be a great tool.
Yeah, there are some 0% out there.
Or if you pay it off every month.
There you go. Yeah.
That way you're protecting your debit card from being hacked.
Yes. And I do that. I love that. You get the points and all that good stuff as well, right? But obviously, when you have debt that you continue to, the situation where it continues to grow and grow and grow, that becomes a little bit of a problem.
Big problem.
Yeah, big problem. You don't really want to buy a house on a credit card, I guess.
No, I don't think you can.
Yeah, I don't think you can. Yeah. So when people think about buying a home, what are some of those questions they have that you commonly receive?
A lot of the questions are, can I qualify for it? How much down payment do I have to have? There's a pretty big misconception that you need 20% down to buy a house.
You don't. See, sometimes is that a lender thing, or is that based on credit limit, or okay?
There's programs out there with 0% down. Mm-hmm. Some USDA programs, some VA programs. There's programs that require 3%, 3.5%, 5%. You do not need 20% down to buy a house.
Okay, interesting. Now, does that mean it changes between like a HELOC and a conventional or something like that? Or
HELOC is a second mortgage, second lien position.
Yep.
That's going to be completely different. But on the first mortgage, the primary mortgage for the property, you can do it as little as 0 down, 5% down, 3.5%. Yeah.
That's good to know. I've always kind of thought about it as like that 20-ish percentile thing.
So. It is a great thing that if you have 20% down, because you avoid private mortgage insurance for conventional financing.
Sure.
But you don't need it.
Yep. So a lot going on in interest rates and things like that. So, but you've lived through a lot of this. You've seen interest rates go up and down along the 20 plus years you've been in this business.
Yes, we have. We've seen rates that were, I guess when I first started back in 2001, if you're getting a rate between 6 and 7%, you're doing fantastic. People are loving it.
I think that historically, that's still pretty darn good over a long period of time, really.
Then we dropped down into the 2s. People were like, this is amazing. Well, that was probably not the best rates that were actually out there, or should have been obtained anyway. But now the rates are back to where they probably should be. We know with the Fed talking of lowering rates, a lot of that's already been adjusted into the mortgage rates. And as it goes on throughout the rest of the year and going into next year, you'll see it catch up and hopefully lower the rates. Yeah.
And there's always the topics about that, what's going on? Should I wait? Should I not wait? I always tell people, whether it's looking at investing or, because you don't know what the future is going to be, find something that makes sense for you. And the house is a great way to think about it. If you find the house where you want to be, or you find the vehicle that you want to own, get it because it's what you want now. It makes sense. And as long as you can afford that payment, don't make that decision based on the interest rate environment today.
People ask me all the time, what do you think the rate's going to do? Mm-hmm. I tell them one of 3 things. They're going to go up, go down, or stay the same.
Makes sense.
I have no clue. But one thing that people say, well, I want to wait for rates to drop. People don't understand a lot of times that when rates drop, the market changes.
Right.
So now there's more people entering the market to buy that house, which means the sales prices of houses are going up. So if you wait for rates to drop even lower than what they're at, you risk the price of the house going up, and actually your payment would go up for the same house.
Right.
Even at the lower interest rate.
And you're not necessarily married to a 30-year rate for the entire 30 years, are you?
No, in fact, I don't know anybody who's been in their same mortgage for 30 years.
Man, I don't know, buddy. The one I'm in right now is like less than 3%. It makes me not want to move.
That's the thing. If things change in your life.
Well, yeah, I want to move. That's the problem. I need a new house. I want to move. I have neighbors that I don't like right now.
Make them move. Just put a sign at their front yard for sale by owner. Just put your number on there.
Yeah. So situations do shift, right? And I think I read a statistic that the average mortgage is like 7-8 years or something along those lines.
That's what it traditionally had been.
Yeah.
People would find it either move within the first 7 or 8 years of that house, or refinance before then.
Because your definition of forever home changes constantly. I guess.
Well, your whole lifestyle changes on a daily basis.
That's right.
You might have kids. Your kids might grow up and move out. Your job might change and get more income.
Right.
So you might want to have a bigger house then, or there's so many different factors go into where you want to be and how you want to live there.
Yeah. So, all right. So we talked a little bit about home mortgages. I don't think that this is all you work with is home mortgages, though.
It is not. We, as member of FNB Bank and Trust, I can do any loans that the bank offers.
Okay.
So commercial financing, HELOCs, which are home equity lines of credit,
Yep.
regular first mortgages. If you're looking to buy a car, we can do auto loans. If you want to buy a boat, do boat loans, RV loans. I actually had a customer call me the other day looking to buy a little parcel of land because his neighbor was selling it and it had beehives on it. And he wanted to get honey.
Okay.
So we're able to get a loan for him so we can buy this little parcel of land with beehives on it so we can start his honey business.
I love that.
Yeah.
Small businesses are always fun to work with.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be a business or not, but
Yeah.
at least produce enough honey for himself to have.
Which is always kind of cool too,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
So we can do land loans, lot loans, construction loans.
So is the construction loan kind of like a bridge loan, right?
We actually do bridge loans.
You do
as
bridge
well.
loans as well? Okay.
Yes. But construction loans, if you have a parcel of land you want to do a custom built home on, we
Sure.
can do the financing for that. And then at the end of the construction period, we can convert it into permanent financing.
Right. And obviously the rates shift along that time as well, right? Because you don't really lock it in until everything's kind of completed.
Correct. There'll be a rate during the construction process and then a rate at the permanent financing as well.
Yeah. Yep. Now, each of these different things, it's usually a separate loan for each piece of collateral, right? You can't like balloon it all in together to make it one big thing, right?
Depending on what kind of loan we're looking at, it might be possible as well too.
Yeah. Very cool.
On
So,
the commercial side, we have flexibility because we do them all ourselves where we can tailor fit it to meet whoever's needs.
yeah. So what is the best thing or what's the most favorite thing you get about going into work each and every day?
Well, it was one day there was actually, it was kind of nice. They had donuts delivered to us.
Nice.
But it was great.
All right. So Scott's my neighbor. So now I know we need to bring donuts to Scott here. All right.
It was kind of funny. That donut shop around the corner there, they were, I guess, out soliciting business and they were half a dozen donuts to our office.
There we go.
There were just two of us there. It was great. No, I enjoy the best people, the most fun people I find to work with are first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
Because when they are able to purchase a home they never thought they could, they realize they don't need 20% down to do so. And when they get those keys at closing, like, wow, this is mine.
It's the first time thing, right?
Yeah.
You and I have been around this a few years now. We've lost that stigma of this new thing, right?
Oh, definitely. Well, I had a guy who was a firefighter, big guy, probably 6'2", 280, not an ounce of fat on him, bought his first home.
Nice.
And at closing, he was in tears.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is a guy who's probably in his early 30s, big, muscular guy, firefighter. Him and his wife, who was a newlywed, they had kids from previous relationships. They bought their house and they were both in tears.
How cool.
Yeah.
It's always about helping people, right?
It is. And that's what makes you excited about what you do.
Yeah.
Get people to put them into a position that they thought they could be in.
That's right. And people don't understand, like, that's one of the things I love about what I do. I'm gifted with the financial acumen side of things. I understand how those kinds of things work. But ultimately, this business ends up being about people and about solving people's problems. And you can use your expertise, your industry experience to do just that and give people the home and the goals and the car that they've been looking for.
Exactly.
And that's awesome. So, well, cool. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it today. And I know we'll be talking to you a lot more as well.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
All right.
You're listening to Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. Request a free copy of Chris's latest book, The New Holistic Retirement, by visiting SerenityNowTax.com. That's SerenityNowTax.com.
All right, so whether you're talking about home loans, auto loans, maybe a boat, business, or just need to look at HELOC type options, give my buddy Scott Sievers a call over at F&M Bank and Trust. He can be reached at 636-614-4646, or you can go to scottsievers.com. I before E. That is ScottSievers.com, 636-614-4646. My neighbors over at F&M Bank and Trust with Scott Sievers will take good care of you.
This is Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper.
All right. Thank you, Scott, for coming in and hanging out, talking a little bit about the interest rate environment we're in. And one thing I think you guys noticed there, like I always talk about, it's not about what's going on in the interest rate environment or what's going on in the world around us. We cannot control these things. It's about making sure you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and have the right relationships in your life to help you make the best financial decisions, to fund the things that you really want to do in life. And that's ultimately what I tend to talk about. Yes, we have some things we can't control, interest rates being one of them. We can control the kind of house we want to be in. We can control the kind of community we want to be a part of. We can control the lifestyle we want to live in. And that's part of those decision-making processes. We don't want to put ourselves in a position to be house poor. We don't want to put ourselves in a position to where we have to be in so much debt that we can't enjoy the lifestyle that we're trying to build. We want to be the right budget for us, the right house to fund our lifestyle, and we have to understand what we're trying to achieve. And those things can be accomplished, and it always helps working with folks who understand these options, take that community-based approach, and go through the things that matter to you most. And that's what I love about Scott and Scott's process. They're actually our neighbor at Serenity Wealth, so great little nice connection. We get to hang out quite a bit and talk about, things that matter to people and being part of the community, and it is something that I absolutely cherish and factor into my practice as well. Sure, we have to talk about things we can't control, and that does include, interest rates and the environment and, political nonsense and, the financial markets and all that good stuff, sure. But ultimately, it's probably more important to talk about those goals, those objectives, and strategies to mitigate those things we can't control. We can't control what's going to happen with taxes. We cannot control what's going to happen with taxes. Whether we vote one way or another, our vote doesn't necessarily influence what happens from a policy perspective. But we do have we do have the ability to make decisions to take control of some of those things. We can look at, hey, can I do some things differently? Do I have exposure to required minimum distributions that affect us? Right now at age 73, it's going to grow to 75. That doesn't mean you continue to delay. It means you think about things that make sense for you and how we can structure our portfolio differently to mitigate our partnership with the IRS. It's about mitigation of those risks, giving us a little bit more control. Those are things we can control, mitigating the items that aren't necessarily in our control. We can't control inflation, we just can't. What we can do is put ourselves in a little bit better position by understanding how to do some negotiations on items, on expenditures, and make sure we adjust accordingly, okay? And plan for it. Most importantly, plan for it. The cost of living you have today will not be the same cost of living 20 years from now. Costs will be higher. Healthcare will be higher. We need to make sure we have a plan for these things and we're taking it into consideration. We cannot control what happens in the political environment, and we really can't control what happens with the markets up and downs. But what we can do is understand our own unique risk tolerance, our goals, our objectives, our timing. Do we need funds today? Can they last until tomorrow? I was just working with some folks this morning, and we were talking about the ability, and not this morning, we were talking a couple days ago, we were talking about the ability to have when we need our funds. When are we going to need these funds? Our savings accounts, right? Our IRAs. In this case, it was an IRA. When are we going to need these funds? He's got his money's best invested with a lifestyle plan and a 401k. Very common, retiring next year. And a lifestyle-based platform says, hey, retirement date of 2025. That's going to go conservative. That's how it works. A lifestyle fund is going to get more conservative as you reach a specific target date. And that target date, 2025, because he's retiring in 2025. Well, what that doesn't take into consideration is the fact that he is going to not need those funds next year. Those funds aren't going to be needed for the next 5 years. He has pensions. He has other vehicles that are going to be able to fund the lifestyle, the expenses he needs. So what do we need to do? We need to do things differently. He doesn't need to have a 2-year time frame. He has more control. He has more flexibility. He can ride some of those momentums and those ups and downs because his time frame is more 3, 5, 10 years. We need to be more aggressive. He's comfortable with being more aggressive. But those path funds, those target date funds, don't do that. So we can take control. We can't control what happens in the markets, but we can control our risk tolerance, and we can make sure we invest based on our risk tolerance. That includes the timing. Timing of funds is a big deal when we're talking about risk profile. So those are things we have to talk about. Limiting our government partnership. What is our comfort with risk? How do we think about mitigation of inflation? And what happens with our own, where do we want to be? We can't control interest rates, but we can control where we want to be. The average mortgage is 7 to 8 years. It's crazy. We change our minds. Our situation shifts, right? As our situation shifts, we have to think about what that's going to do to our goals and objectives as well. So that is a big deal, taking control of what you can, but most importantly, living life and enjoying that lifestyle you deserve. We call it Serenity Wealth. We're Serenity Now at Serenity Wealth Management, and that is what we are all about.
Serenity Now!
See you next week.
This is Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. Request a free copy of Chris's latest book, The New Holistic Retirement, by visiting SerenityNowTax.com. That's SerenityNowTax.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors.